And tonight I'm really excited because I have one of my favorite people to come on to present, and I'm glad she could work us into her busy schedule, even though she's now technically retired. I think she's busier than she has been before. She's been with us on previous programs and is one of our advisors for our Saving the Saviors program, as well as our Frontline Heroes Wellness Fund that you will be learning more about. And I asked Betsey O'Brien from NAMI Piedmont, Tricounty to join us tonight because when we talk about heart health, the one thing that I have really come to realize, especially in my own journey as a heart attack survivor, but also as I've had conversations with other, especially women who have survived cardiac events, the thing that I keep hearing over and over again, that common thread, is about stress and anxiety and depression. And I know in my own life, I look back and, 2020, hindsight's a great teacher, isn't it? But as we look back in our, in our own lives and we see those pivotal moments where something changed in our health, for me, that compounded stress played a really big part. I didn't realize just how big of a part all of that stress was having on my body, how it was taking a toll, how it had increased inflammation in my body, which is a root cause of heart disease, how it caused increased cortisol in my body, which caused me to gain about an extra 20 pounds. I was sitting all of the time. I wasn't exercising as much as I could because I was working 9, 10, 12-hour days. And I was sitting most of that time. And I'd go home exhausted and go to bed and get up and do it all over again. And getting into that cycle will take its toll on your health. And as I've talked to other women, especially, and men who've survived cardiac events, when you go back and you kind of rewind things and you look at the stress that were in their lives, you can see that. And what's really interesting for survivors, as you all know, I'm one of the Survivors Have Heart champions with Bob Harper, and love working with Bob Harper. And the one thing that I've really grown with that program and learned as a survivor is that after you've had a cardiac event, I mean, you have the stress and anxiety before, but after a cardiac event, it's really common, especially in men, for us to experience depression. So mental health plays a big, big part in our heart health. And so tonight I am going to bring her on, and I'm really excited because she also has her husband, Dan, with her rather. And so I'm going to ask Betsey to come on camera with us and unmute so that we can introduce. There they are. Hi, it's the O'Briens. How are you? I've been talking gloriously about you, in case you just saw that.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, we're excited to be here, and I decided to ask Dan to join me because he's one of my big cheerleaders. And sometimes when we're having, whether it's a mental health issue or whether it's a cardiac issue, sometimes we're just not ready to face those things. And so if you have somebody that's kind of, this doesn't look right, or maybe we should take you to the doctor, or maybe this doesn't, it's helpful. I think it really changed and saved my life when I was having my cardiac event. And I said, I think this is indigestion. And he said, you better go to the emergency room. And I still went in, and it was an urgent care. And I still went in there talking about the fact that I was having indigestion. So a little bit of denial, but somebody watching, like my angel watching over me to make sure that that I didn't follow the same footsteps as my, some of my very close family members who died very, very young from cardiac illness. So tonight I was going to see if we could talk about the heart and mind connection. Sheila, like you had just said, cortisol, big thing. Where we get a lot, it's like almost like a stress hormone. And if you have a very stressful life, we did with our young child who had a lot of mental health challenges, and we just seemed to always be struggling. And people would say, what are you going to be doing tomorrow or the next day? I'm like, I'm just getting through today. We're working on today. So that really, I think that contributed a lot to some of our mental health issues, but definitely to the heart health. And so, there's a book out, and I haven't read it, but the title is so perfect for this conversation. When you talk about the body keeps score, have you read that?
I have not, but I'd like to.
Right. And I think
I'm writing it down. The body takes score. Okay.
The body keeps score. And I think a lot of it is it talks a lot about, I think, trauma in your life, different events that are traumatic, and one man's trauma is not another person's trauma. So, it's individualized, but it can just be enough to sort of your body. We don't realize what's happening in our body, but as we're taking more and more of this stress and trauma and PTSD and all those other anxiety issues, your body is kind of, it's keeping score. So I want to read that book, but I love the title. I just absolutely love the title.
I think tonight's conversation is timely, because as I've mentioned to you when we talked about this, that so many survivors, you're a survivor and I'm a survivor, when we look back at our lives and we see the stress, and when you're going through it, I don't know that you really realize the impact that it's having until it's almost too late.
Right.
And I think perhaps if any good things have come out of the last 2 years, I hope that people being more comfortable and more open talking about this subject, that stress and anxiety and depression, it plays a major part in our health, our overall health, and our heart health, and in our lives. So I hope that through this experience for the last 2 years, because we've lost a lot of wonderful people,
right.
And you see, especially the young people who are just struggling, and you're starting to see the effects of that. And I wonder what's it going to be like when these young people who are struggling right now, when they hit their 20s and 30s, what's going to be the repercussions? So I think having this conversation is really timely. And I thank you and Dan for doing this for us. I am going to turn it over to you. You are now co-host. You have full screen rights. So I'm going to be quiet and listen and learn. And thank you again for doing this for us.
Well, you're very welcome. Okay. So we're going to talk about the Heart Health Connection. That's me, Betsey O'Brien, and this is Dan. And I am actually I'm a volunteer for NAMI Piedmont Tricounty. I was previously the executive director and have just retired in the early part of January. So next slide, sir. There we go. Okay, so this slide, it talks about the beat goes on, right? So that's our song by Sonny and Cher. And, this is a heart that works 24/7. And for as many years as you've been alive, your heart has just been beating away. So the first thing I want to do before I link them together are talk about what are those warning signs for heart disease in women? What are those subtle symptoms? The subtle symptoms, and many women will feel these: extreme fatigue, shortness of breath, the inability to do what you were able to do. Maybe you used to be able to climb the stairs without getting winded. Little things that you could do. One of the things that happened with me when I knew I was having symptoms was I was walking with my husband. We were walking up a hill, and I got to the top of the hill, and it wasn't a very big hill. And I said, wow, I am really tired. And he said, we're going to really have to get in shape. And it was really one of those warning signs for an earlier heart event. So shortness of breath is a big one. Extreme fatigue, that's another one. Sometimes, one of the things that happened to me was after I would eat lunch or a big meal, I would feel like I needed a nap, and I never need a nap. So I think my body was working sort of overtime to digest the food. And so I was feeling really tired. So it could go ahead and do what it needed to do to sort of do some of the other jobs that your heart has to do to help other organs in your body work. The more noticeable symptoms that are a little, not so subtle. You have neck, jaw, arm, and back pain. And a lot of us women, we can say, oh, maybe I lifted the milk out of the refrigerator too quickly, or maybe that's what I did. I used the other hand or the other arm. The unexpected sweating would be one that would be pretty significant. And of course, the chest pain. Those are not always symptoms that people would have with a mental health, a heart cardiac event. Okay, so let's look at the next slide, which is going to talk about what is a mental health condition. Okay, so we just talked about what do these symptoms look like in a woman for having a cardiac event. Now it's what is a mental health condition. They are neurological brain disorders. They're chemical imbalances of the brain. They affect the way we think, act, and feel. It's you just can't do as many things as you used to do with the same type of energy, and you're just a little more. It's just different for you, and it lasts more than 2 weeks. Anything over 2 weeks, we all get a little depressed, we all get a little sad, things happen. But if it's something that continues for more than 2 weeks, it's something that you should consider. Is this something that is more, this is more, this is a red flag. This is something I need to talk to someone who knows me and loves me and understands what I might be going through, or is this something I need to talk to a physician about? So mental health conditions are medical issues, medical illnesses, just like any other neck down illness, just like diabetes, heart disease, thyroid disease, any of these other illnesses. This is what a mental health condition is. It just affects the brain versus the pancreas or the heart or the thyroid gland or any other thing that could be going on with our bodies. Okay. So why should we care about this? There's a very high prevalence rate for mental health conditions in the United States, across the world, but right now we're going to just focus on these numbers. 1 in 4 Americans deal with a mental health condition each year. And so why should we care? Because it is really, really common. When you think about the number 1 in 4, that's about 25%. And they say 1 in 5 youth, and that's 20%. So when you think about those large numbers and you're maybe in a large group of people and you think, okay, so if it was 1 in 4, how many of us would be coping with a mental health challenge? So the prevalence rate of mental health illnesses or mental illnesses by diagnosis, schizophrenia is that first one. 1.1% of Americans live with schizophrenia. 2.6 live with bipolar disorder. 6.9, almost 7% live with major depression. And this one is the big one. 18.1% of American adults live with anxiety disorder. These numbers are from 2017. These numbers are going to go up. Schizophrenia and bipolar, maybe not those, they won't change as much as the depression and the anxiety. The pandemic has brought on a lot more of both of those particular mental health conditions. And now 1 in 3 adults is reporting that they are living with either one or both, depression or anxiety. So when you think about those kinds of numbers and you think about your heart and you think about all the other organs in your body, but the heart connected to the brain, and how is all the stress that you're dealing with if you have an anxiety disorder, and how are you coping with the depression when you're having struggles to just do certain things that you normally would do, and it's really a concern. It's really a concern. And one of the things too that I want to mention about heart disease, and Sheila will confirm this, heart disease is the #1 killer of women. And it is the #1 killer of women more than any of the other cancers combined. And she can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that is a real statistic, and it's a staggering statistic. So we do need to pay attention to our heart health. We need to pay attention with how our mental health is affecting our heart health. Okay, so what causes mental health conditions? When I look at this slide, and when you think about this slide too, I want you to be thinking about someone who is also having issues with cardiac issues, stress, toxic stress, that it just can be, piled up and piled on. So there are many factors, right, that will affect our mental health and will cause these conditions to occur. All right. Sometimes it's just one. Sometimes it's a combination of some of these different things that are listed below. But when we look at these bullet points, think about someone who's having a cardiac event too. It is very, very easy to be able to say, oh, this could cause a cardiac event. Oh, this could be part of a mental health diagnosis as well. So personal family history of mental illness, exactly the same for a heart condition. I have a very, very strong family history of heart disease. So one versus the other, you can read that into both easily. How about financial stress? That is such a big deal for someone who's living with a mental health challenge. It is also something that can seriously affect someone's heart health. Traumatic events such as divorce, job loss, being the victim of a crime, big stressor for mental health, which can cause all sorts of issues. And same thing for a heart health condition. So all of these can really be very depressing, bring on a lot of anxiety, PTSD, all these things that would really, really wear us down in the neck down department. Physical health issues, chronic pain, okay, that affects people that live with mental health conditions. Chronic pain can be very depressing. It can be very, very anxiety ridden. Sometimes it can be so severe that some people, are actually contemplate ending their life. Physical health, all these things that if you find out that you have diabetes, or if you find out you have other health issues, it can seriously, seriously impact your heart health as well. Abuse of alcohol and drugs, or drugs, I should say, obviously a big challenge and cause for someone who has a mental health condition. Often, it's, self-medicating for a mental health condition. But abuse of alcohol and drugs is also something that completely, it really is hard on your heart. If those drugs, just think about nicotine as one of the drugs, really, really hard on your heart and your circulation and all sorts of other things. So you can see how, one is really so similar to the other. Loneliness and isolation. Loneliness and isolation are really difficult for people that live with a mental health condition. And also it's really hard. It's a stressor for people who live with heart disease. If you have loneliness and isolation, maybe you are going to not eat right. Maybe you're not going to be exercising because remember, you're isolating. You're not really out doing things that might be good for your body. Grief is a really big one for both. Grief is really hard for someone who has a mental health condition. It is one of the things. I was just listening to a podcast the other day where someone was talking about how difficult and how heart-wrenching, literally heartbreak can be. You go through a loss of a relationship. You might lose someone you love when they pass away. There are so many things that can cause grief, and it's truly like a broken heart syndrome, and it does affect your physical health and your mental health. So on this next slide, it shows heart attack symptoms for men versus women. And the men have those more, the less subtle sorts of symptoms where they might have nausea and sweating and have that back pain, neck pain, the squeezing chest where you feel like you have an elephant on your chest and you can't breathe. Those are the things that typically are signs and symptoms for a man. Now the women, look at us, we really luck out. We've got a whole bunch more symptoms and more things we have to be really, really watching for. That nausea and vomiting, the chest pain that doesn't always go away. For me, that was that indigestion, fainting, shortness of breath. I had one of those instances as well. Extreme fatigue, pain or pressure in the lower chest or upper abdomen, but maybe comes and goes. So our symptoms, we have to be watching a lot more things to make sure that we're watching our heart health.
Dan just wants to say something here.
Sure.
It's interesting when she was saying that she didn't feel too good and she wanted to go to the hospital because she looked fine. We were sitting outside on the porch. We were both enjoying a glass of wine with our son. We were just relaxing. Our son wasn't having any wine, but we were. And she said, I just don't feel right. She looked fine. You never would have guessed in a million years. Said, I don't feel, do you think I should go? And we were like, well, maybe it should. I mean, it wouldn't hurt because of the history, but I never would have known. And I was so shocked when they said, she's going to have to stay. And I think Betsey said, I can drive, my husband can drive me over there to the hospital. And they said, no. You have to take an ambulance over there. So we really, like I said, it was a total shock. And my son and I were like, what? We couldn't believe it. And then we got stressed. We got more stressful. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that.
Well, thank you. All righty, we can move on. But just looking in that picture and looking at that slide, that we ladies, we don't pay as much attention, especially if we're running a house, if we're working hard at work, if we have other commitments. We tend to sort of put ourselves on the back burner. And these are things that we really have to be super aware of, that especially when we know that heart disease and heart attacks, and they are the #1 killer of women. Okay, so how does a mental health condition affect your heart and vice versa? So as I said before, if you have depression, how does that contribute? How's that going to contribute to your heart disease, right? Well, we all have those days, right, when we're down in the dumps and we just can't seem to be getting things going. And if things are really wearing you down and you're having a hard time getting up and out of your house, getting up and out and doing anything for yourself, including showering and doing all of those things, you may have depression. And again, that's going to be on a continuum. You may have a little bit of depression, or you may have something that's super debilitating, but you have depression. And so like heart disease, it's really common. It is really common. So it's not at all unusual to have these conditions in tandem. And so you're twice as likely to have depression if you have heart disease compared with the general population. So we also know that people with depression face a heightened risk of heart disease. So really have to be watching yourself and making sure that if you do have depression, that you're seeing a doctor, you're doing the things you need to do so that, you can maybe get a safety net under yourself, so that if you do end up having a heart issue, that it's one that's under control and taking medication for whatever it is that your treatment plan is. So now how does anxiety cause heart disease? Well, Sheila had mentioned in the beginning of the program, those surges of cortisol, that sort of stress hormone, I think, that we have. And it can really affect heart disorders and cardiac risk factors. Like, you have that rapid heart rate when you have an anxiety issue, you get all worked up. In serious cases, it can really interfere with heart function, and it can cause cardiac arrest. Increased blood pressure, big deal. If you're having a lot of stress and your heart is pumping away and pumping away and pumping away, and if you do have any blockage, it can really lead to you having high blood pressure, leading to another coronary disease, the weakening of the heart muscle, and God forbid, having a heart attack. Panic attacks resemble a heart event, a cardiac event, absolutely 100%. And it often brings our sufferers to the emergency room. People who have an actual full-blown panic attack, they can't breathe, their heart is racing, they feel that pressure on their chest, and they're sure that they are having a heart attack. I have a very close friend who has panic attacks, and she is 100% behind this as the way her symptoms present. So yes, it's one of those things you have to be in touch with yourself, get yourself to the emergency room. If you find out that it is a panic attack, see your doctor and see if there's something that they can do as part of, create a treatment plan for you that probably includes things like some coping strategies, ways to de-stress, and possibly having medication so that they don't recur. So it's a heartache, nothing but a heartache. I had mentioned a little bit earlier that heartache is a really, really big stressor for people who to have a cardiac event. A heartache is an emotional anguish or grief typically caused by the loss or absence of someone loved. So in this podcast I had heard the other day talking about heartache and how it can so affect your mental health and it can so affect your physical health. It was interesting because they were sharing statistics about people who lose later in their life and they lose a loved one, a partner. It's a lot of times something will happen to that partner just because of the heartache and because of the grief and the loss. So it's clear that there's an evidence, there's evidence to back that up, that heartache is really truly heartache. Some of the synonyms with having a heartache is anguish, grief, suffering, distress, unhappiness. All of those things listed there are all part of mental health, and they all can lead to having a very difficult, stressful life and having heart disease. So again, all of those things, the synonyms for heartache, all kind of tie back into both mental health and physical health.
In everything you do, there's an understanding of the greater good. And that greater good ain't always you or the people in this company. It's really the communities where we live every day. We're here for the greater good of the community, not just the survival of this business.
So how to stay heart healthy and mentally well? So again, there's this connection between the two. The advice from cardiologists, your general practitioners, psychiatrists, therapists for maintaining your heart health and mental wellness are so similar. I mean, it's just, you have to do all these things to keep your mental health in a good place. And your cardiologist would tell you, eat healthy foods, get plenty of rest, get plenty of exercise, use meditation or other ways to relax and refresh. Listen to your body. Remember, I was telling you your body keeps score. And I am going to read that book. Follow your treatment plan, which often includes medication. I know that there have been times for myself when I've been on an antibiotic or something, and I get halfway through the medication and I'm like, oh, I think I'm done with this. I think I'm good. And it's because it's working or starting to work, and we shouldn't stop taking medication. It's what's keeping us in a good place. So that works for people who have a heart, have heart health issues. I now take a statin just to kind of keep all that blood flowing through the heart really well, but it's not like something I can just stop taking. It's part of my treatment plan, and I know I'm staying well for 3 years because it's working. So same for someone who's living with depression or anxiety. If it's keeping you in a good place, don't stop taking it. It's keeping you in a good place. The medication's keeping you in a good place because it's working for you. So, and one of the things that both heart health keeps you heart healthy and mentally well is to have your crisis plan. Know what to do if your symptoms become worse. That is for your heart health. That's what Dan knows. If I should start showing any of those symptoms from those earlier slides, he would know exactly what to do. And for people who have mental health challenges, you need to have someone close to you, or you yourself need to be tuned into yourself, as I do with my heart health, to know when symptoms are becoming worse. What is my crisis plan? When do I say it's time to go for help? And that's really pretty much it.
I'm gonna stop the share on this.
Yes, thank you.
That was a lot of great information, all compacted together. Thank you so much. I was thinking about, I remember somebody many years ago that had gone to the ER. They were in their 20s. And of course, the diagnosis was, it was just an anxiety attack. To which I said, you know, that's kind of concerning because of a couple of reasons. One, to the person who suffers from that, it is never just an anxiety attack. I mean, I guess it's good that the heart checked out and all that was good, but the conversation then led to the fact that, especially in younger men, anxiety can be a symptom of heart disease later in life.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's never just anxiety. And I think for so long, we've kind of marginalized those things that we haven't taken them seriously and help people understand where you are right now. If you are experiencing those things, you don't have to suffer with it. You can get help. You can learn how to cope. You can get medications or therapy that you need to help you get along in life. But I remember that because when that story was relayed to me, and I said, well, wait, you know, especially in younger adults, anxiety is like a red flag for heart disease, you know, that this is something you need to address, not just say, okay, well, it's just that, we're just not going to worry about that. But I know in some families, anxiety attacks, for example, you see a history, a pattern within the family. But so I'm glad you mentioned that. And but I'm like you. I'm going to read that book, Body. You and I probably could have written the book, The Body Keeps Score. But I think for women especially to understand, and I appreciate you sharing those slides, and you're absolutely correct. Heart disease is the /1 killer of women in this country. It actually kills 6 times more women every year than all of the cancers combined. That's one out of every 4 women. The deaths are from heart disease. That comes to over 300,000. And Betsey, as you and I both know, it's a largely preventable disease. And so that's why we do what we do as survivors, is trying to share that story. And I'm glad you have shared that heart-brain connection, because as you've shared with that mental health aspect of it, eventually all of that is going to come through. But like you said, by the same token, sometimes the symptoms that you experience for them are so closely knitted together, it's really easy to say, well, it's just this or it's just that, so you can keep moving on, as well as what we do for our hearts affects our whole bodies. And so that was very interesting. I was sitting there going, yeah, that's right. Yep, that's good. So for people who are in that situation, and we know that sometimes when you go to your primary care physician and you try to share these things, I mean, for most of our adult lives as women, we've experienced bikini medicine. If you go to the doctor, pretty much if it's waist down, you know, that gets a lot of attention in your childbearing years and as you get older. But more and more, you know, OBGYNs, they're talking about the whole woman. Now we're getting it where it's the whole woman, but it's also our mental health too. But tell us a little bit more, while in the time that we have left, unless somebody has some questions, about NAMI Piedmont Tricounty, and for people that need services, they need programs, they need to reach out for help. They may not be able to get it at home or through their normal channels, but you all have such wonderful services there. Can you share a little bit more about NAMI and how you all can help people navigate this?
Sure, absolutely. I love NAMI, and NAMI is in our area, it's NAMI Piedmont Tri-County, and we support and we have education, advocacy, and support groups and other webinars and programs for those who live with a mental health condition and those that love them. And all of the folks who are in our community, because people that live with a mental health condition, they're working, we're everywhere, so we want to make sure that people at the school, at the office, everybody knows how to support someone or send them for support if they're having challenges. So we have support groups. We have 11 support groups every month that right now are virtual. I think we're having one in the office on Monday. We're actually going to try to step it out a little bit for parents of children and adolescents. And but yeah, we have support groups that meet virtually for those family members on Tuesday nights, and for individuals that live with a mental health condition on Thursdays. And it's a way for people to stay connected. Sometimes it's the very first time that family members and individuals that live with a mental health condition are talking and coming out and saying how things are in their home. It's just a great resource, and it's a great way to, sometimes, you go in there in a group and you leave with exactly the same problems that you came with, but you're not alone. You realize I'm not in here, but there's other people that I can connect with. NAMI also has evidence-based programs. Where Dan and I are actually right now wrapping up, well, we have 2 more weeks of teaching family to family. We have a great class right now. And because we're virtual, we have somebody who's in the class from Virginia, which is wonderful. It's like, okay, so the time of our class, we're not territorial or, turfy. It's like, if this class worked for you, we are going to give you the exact same class and support that we would give all the people that are here locally. But it's an 8-session course on how to cope with, work with, deal with your adult loved one that lives with a mental health condition. And those first couple of meetings that we're in the classes together, it's the first time some people have ever talked to anybody about this. And there are lots of tears sometimes. There's also a class that's starting this coming Tuesday. It's called NAMI Basics, and that is for parents of children and youth that have they have challenges. They don't necessarily even have to have a mental health diagnosis, but parents have that gut feel that something's not quite right. And it's another one of those evidence-based best practices for parents who need the support and want the support. And again, it's one of those places where you're in a group with all these, in Zoom with all these parents, and you're like, I'm not the only one who's dealing with this. And it is really helpful. It is helpful to have that happen. One of the things too about NAMI programs, presentations, support groups, all the things we do are at no cost. So we rely on the community to help support us, because the organization has staff to support all of those things. It's a really great staff, and they're wonderful. And like as an example, this evening I had gotten a call from someone who got my name from one of our community partners, and just trying to help them work through a crisis situation they're having with their adult son. So this kind of, let's get them let's shortcut them to some care. Otherwise, they might be wringing their hands, and they're in the middle of a very stressful situation, just like we were talking about, lots of anxiety. What can we do to help them get through that so they can focus on what they need to focus on, that health care that they need for the son, and obviously taking care of their own health. So yeah, that's what we do. Love this work. And yeah.
You definitely have a passion for it, and I know you do it from the heart. And just whenever I see either the social media posts or the emails, because I'm on your email list of the programs, I look at the list and I go, oh my goodness, That's a lot in 1 week. And, but, you know, that is, I think, another thing that has come out of the last 2 years is it's really helped us all, you know, offer more of ourselves to people beyond our own borders. And for a lot of those people that work that may be convenient for them, I think it's wonderful that you all are able to do that. And I wanted to go back to something that that Dan had mentioned when you had your cardiac event, and he remarked that you know, looking at you, you would never know. And I think most people, if they saw you in person, because you're this little tiny petite thing, you're not the face of heart disease. You would not be the person that would walk up to me at a health fair and I'd go, oy vey, here we go. This person I need to talk to, which I've learned the hard way that you cannot look at somebody on the outside to know who has it and who doesn't, because I've been surprised a couple of times by that. But you know, you definitely would not be that person that you would look at and think that. But Dan, I know when Bill and I went through the Survivors Have Heart program, you know, I'm 10 years into my heart attack. We did this in 2019. And what was remarkable was that he and I, you know, you're so busy going through this and trying to get your loved one well, you know, and to make sure they're going to be okay. There were conversations we never had. He'd never really sat down and told me what it was like for him watching me go through that. Do you have anything you would like to share about, you know, how you kind of processed all of that and you got through watching the love of your life going through this?
Yeah, it was tough because we have a great relationship. And it wasn't until she came out of surgery that I kind of broke down and cried and wept. And some friends came with me because it was such a relief. Even when he said, why don't you come back? Is everything okay? And I was really nervous. He said, everything went well, but I couldn't believe it because she'd been so healthy. Now, I will say this, she had some stents before. She had some stents before, but when she had those stents, the doctor said, you've got to come in tomorrow or the next day because those stents, you need those stents right away. But when we went in and they said, well, she's going to need quadruple heart bypass surgery, and he's talking about the percentages, and the percentages are really good, but it's still scary. And I was terrified because you would never know how healthy she was. And walked, did a lot of exercise. You know, we did hiking. We did a lot of stuff. So it was quite the shock. And you know, you think about it, and you know, I think about it now. It's painful. You know, going in and seeing her, she was still working. She was still working in the bed at the hospital, but she was too much. But yeah, everything turned out for the better. And you know, now she gets checked up regularly. And I'm going to say one other thing that people may not realize. She called up her brother and she said, you know, I just had this heart surgery. I think you need to go in and do that. Have a checkup. He said, no, you go in and have a checkup. And you know what happened? What did he have, Betsy?
3 months almost to the day, he had a quadruple bypass, and he was just like, he was furious because he wasn't even having symptoms. He said, you are the only symptom I'm having is you are a pain in the neck that made me go do it. And I always tell him now, I saved your life. I saved your life. So
it's true. It's true. It is true. You did.
It's true.
Well, when you talk about that family history of early heart disease, you know, and that's always something that we zone in on right off of the bat. And I want to say it was Dr. Joel Kahn. I'm going to give him credit for it anyway. He kind of made the analogy about heart disease. He said, you know, genetics may be the gun, you know, as far as heart disease goes, but it's what you do for your body that are the bullets in the gun, you know. So just because you had that family history, you know, there are people that they may not develop heart disease, or they may have it very mild, and they do a lot of prevention that keeps them from experiencing, you know, a full-blown cardiac event. But as you and I both know, and as Dan knows now, you know, from being with you most of us that have a heart attack at the ages that you and I did, had, a cardiac event at the ages that we did, most of us didn't even know we had it until we had some kind of an event where they're saying stents and quadruple bypass. And you all know I went through my own husband, with this. And there is something that I think when you're a heart attack survivor, because everything is like emergency 911, got to get it done, get it open. But when you're going through that bypass, that open heart surgery, just the trauma of going through that surgery and those long hours of waiting, praying that you're going to see your loved one on the other side, and then the recovery that follows, that's a whole other experience. But 3 years later, you'll look great. I know I can't believe you're retired again, but I know you're not retired because you're busier than you were before, but you're retired again. So congratulations on that.
Oh, thank you. And when you just mentioned what Dr. Khan had said, we call that in mental health, it's called the second hit. So we always ask too, before, when you're talking to someone and you're actually working with a family, you would say, is there a family history at all? Because that's really one of the precursors, right? But if it's that second hit, so you could have that genetic predisposition for having some sort of a cardiac event or a mental health condition, but if things don't pile on, you won't get that second hit. And I always share with people that I know when I'm trying to make this point for those in our family to family class. My sister has a marker for lupus, but she doesn't have lupus, but she has a genetic predisposition because we have a family history of someone having lupus, and she thought she would just check once and oh my gosh, I have the marker. Well, she may never get lupus her whole life, right? But if something happens and the stars align in a certain way, she could get it because she's got that predisposition. So that second hit, or what Dr. Khan was saying, the bullets in the gun, right? So
it's too bad that your brother who died, 40 years old. If only somebody had said to him, go in and see a doctor and get it checked out.
Absolutely, Dan, and that's why we work so hard. That our focus is very much on early detection. People, of course, it's 30 years into the making that we don't think twice about getting a mammogram or a colonoscopy. Those are things that we do preventatively to make sure that we've gotten those things checked out, because we know that early detection saves lives. But it seems when it comes to our heart health, we don't have that same conversation. I've never figured out how you have the number one killer, but yet you don't have early detection as the same level of priority. I have a hard time wrapping my brain around that, except that, when I do meet people, and I'm sure, Betsey, you've met people like this too, that they avoid that because they're afraid if there is something, then they've got to make a decision and they've got to do something about it. So it's like, if I can keep it over here, maybe it won't catch up with me. Right. But yeah, Dan, I'm with you. We encourage people, especially if you've got that family history, not just get your basic biometrics checked, but get the advanced lab work that we do with our Saving the Saviors program for the first responders. The coronary artery calcium scan has saved lives. I mean, that's how we discovered my husband, because on paper, he was okay. He passed the EKG and he passed the stress test. He was good, but he wasn't good. He had significant heart disease and had no symptoms, didn't feel bad, would not have known that he had it until it was too late. So, but absolutely keep preaching that message. The one thing I did want to go back to on your slide that really kind of struck me when you showed that over 18% of adults, Betsey, that suffer from anxiety disorder, that's not too far behind from the number of adults who smoke in the state of South Carolina. When you look at that national number, and when we hear numbers that high, it's an automatic, oh no, we need to take this seriously and we need to do something about it. We need to help, minimize that. So I'm glad you shared that number, because I think that kind of paints a real picture about how many people we're talking about that are having tangible issues,
Right.
it may not lead to heart disease, but it certainly can be life altering.
Exactly. And again, the body keeps score. So if this kind of stuff
Yeah.
is happening, and those were numbers from 2017. And as I said, the new numbers, the new numbers are 1 in 3 adults are struggling with depression and or anxiety because of the pandemic, or just, all of the things that have changed in the past few years. So those numbers are going to be higher.
So yeah, it's hard for me to wrap my head around the fact that 2017 was 5 years ago, but it was 5 years ago.
It
Yeah.
really was.
So yeah, to see those numbers. Did you have anything you wanted to add, you or Dan, in closing?
Well, I wanted to thank you for involving us in the frontline wellness and all of that first responder work, because it is a group that is they don't always take good care of themselves. They're eating meals on the fly, and they're in these really stressful jobs, and that includes our frontline workers that are in the medical field too. I mean, it's hard work, and we have to worry about them and support them, because right now they are definitely putting their health on the back burner, because they're so busy just putting out fires, literally and figuratively. But yeah, it's so important to keep their mental health in a good place and their physical health in a good place, because we need them.
Oh my goodness, I can't imagine what our world would be like if we didn't have those that continue to step up and serve. And but thank you again to you and Dan for doing this program and for sharing. You always just put your heart out there to everybody, and I really do appreciate it. If any of you have any questions or need resources, you want to find out more about their support groups, both virtually and other programs in person, you can go and visit NAMIPiedmont.org. I put that address over in the chat, as well as over in the Facebook Live. I'll get it out right. And you can go ahead and check that out, and it's there. It's free services and programs, and it's great that we have a community and we have donors who are willing to give of their time and talent and resources to make those things possible for our community. If you want more information about how to be heart healthy, then you can head over to the heart2heartfoundation.org, click on the resource tab. There's tons of resources there. I'm always finding and adding more resources. Like Betsey, I am going to go find that book, The Body Keeps Score. Maybe we need to have a little book club and have a little talk about that one. I think that's going to be a very, very interesting read. But we appreciate those of you who have joined us this evening. If you're watching on the replay, thank you for watching on the replay, and make sure you check out our YouTube channel for other videos about how to keep your heart healthy. So again, thanks to the O'Briens, and you all have a wonderful rest of the Heart Month. And don't forget that the better you love your heart, the longer it can love you back. Good night, everybody.